Where's the line drawn between Islam, the religious faith, and Islamism, a sort of politically motivated ideology which wishes to instill radicalism in the West? Take a look at this clip over here with Alan West, former congressman, who has a discussion with a student about this particular matter. So we'll watch this clip together and then talk about it. But first, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch.
I study international relations over here at Boston University. I've staffed elections, worked on elections, worked in campaigns, worked in courts, worked with Homeland Security on countering violent extremism initiatives. So I'm a patriotic American who wants to go into public service to serve this country. Now, once you know that about myself, I just want to bring up something that you've said in the past that I was hoping to ask you a little bit about. So let me just pull it up. In a previous campaign event that you've had, let me just pull this up right here. You once said, and I will quote, "We already have a fifth column that is already infiltrating into our colleges, into our universities, into our high schools, into our religious aspect, our cultural aspect, our financial, our political systems in this country. And that enemy represents something called," and I quote you, "Islam. And Islam is a totalitarian, theocratic political ideology. It is not a religion. It has not been a religion since 622 AD. And we need to have individuals that stand up and say that." And then you went on to say that.
Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever,
I definitely have a question.
You're not asking a question. You're just reading a statement. Now,
sir,
I'm going to
ask
you. Sir,
with all
because
due
I know what you're trying to say.
No,
All due respect to
I'm
you, too. Have you ever read the strategic memorandum of the Muslim Brotherhood that was written in 1991 by Muhammad Akram that was found in an FBI raid in 2004 in the basement of a house in Northern Virginia?
Yes, I have. And if you were the Constitution of Medina, the Constitution of the Medina was the last document that Prophet Muhammad put out before he passed away. And
did you ever read the Treaty of Hudaybiyah?
No, but sir,
I mean, we can go back and forth on historical documents.
Sir, with all due respect, sir, I haven't even asked my question.
I know. That's why I'm waiting on.
So let me ask you the question. So, you've called Islam a theocratic political ideology.
Okay.
So my first question.
So what is Iran?
So my first question is, how do you define a religion? And from there on, what makes Islam not a religion in your eyes? And then from there on, are you suggesting that American Muslims, such as myself, are not worthy of religious protections and religious rights as enshrined in our Constitution?
I did not say that.
So explain to me, how do you define a religion?
As a matter of fact, I left my house plenty of times to go over and fight in Kuwait and Afghanistan and Iraq for the ability for individuals to have freedom. But if you want me to sit here and deny history, if you want me to sit here and act like some things have never happened, I'm not going to do that. I do not have the onus to, make a statement about what is fact. Okay, we can go back and we can read the Quran, we can read the Hadith, we can read the Sunnah, we can compare it up with history, and we can see that there was a definite departure from a basic religious belief in 622 AD, and you can see the verses, how they changed. And I understand Islamic jurisprudence, and I understand the Arabic term nakish, which means subsequent verses of the Quran supersede the previous verses, but they're all still the verses of Allah as given down to Muhammad. So what I'm trying to tell you is when I look at the Islamic Republic of Iran, when I look at Saudi Arabia, and how interesting it is that Saudi Arabia was just put on the Commission for Women's Rights when they have the greatest violation of women's rights whatsoever. I have a problem with that, having two daughters, okay? So I will tell you this, I'm happy to work with you, but I think we need to come to an understanding that there is a problem. And if you want to continue on, as we just saw current administration, last administration do, with obfuscation, denial, and dismissal, I think one of the worst things that President Obama did was when he stood up there in August of 2014 and said, let me make myself very clear, ISIS is not Islamic. Well, I don't know what the I stands for. It's not Southern Baptist, it's not Mennonite, it's not Presbyterian. So you have to take the enemy for who they are and what they say they are doing, especially when the leader of the caliphate of ISIS has a PhD in Islamic studies. So I'm going to listen to him and I'm going to take him for who he is. But I will tell you that I thank you for standing up and doing what is necessary, just the same as I thanked those interpreters and translators that stood there with me fighting in Iraq and fighting in Afghanistan. But if there's to be a change in the Muslim world, if you want to call it that way, we need the young people to stand up. And the sad thing that we have not done in the United States of America, we have not stood up with you, just the same as the Green Movement in Iran, just the same as we misread the Arab Spring, just the same as we stood next with the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. We have made some very bad decisions. And I would
With all due respect, sir, you have not answered my question. What defines a religion and why is Islam not a
Religion
religion?
is
Because in
man-made
your
dogma.
words,
No,
Islam
no,
is not
look.
a theocratic idea.
Since
Very
622
nice talking
AD,
point
since
you've given me,
622
sir.
AD, it has not reflected itself as being a religion, but yet it can still call itself a religion. That's the whole purpose of, like I said, the theory of abrogation. But we have got to understand that there is something that is happening that we need to work together to dismiss. And when I see the Organization of Islamic Cooperation that does not understand that there's a problem with Islamic jihadism, when I see an organization like the Council for American Islamic Relations that are, doing things to shut down free speech and shut down people that want to talk about this jihadist problem, then I see them more a part of the problem than a part of the solution.
Do you believe that Muslims are not condemning terrorism when they're the largest victims of jihadism and terrorism?
Well, I tell you something, if they were condemning terrorism, we probably wouldn't have as much terrorism.
So this discussion is about 10 years old, but the relevance of the subject matter is something that's still very, very much in vogue today. The truth is that Islam and Judaism share quite a bit from a theological perspective, starting with the way that we look at God as indivisible, as universal, as all-powerful, as an entity that cannot be depicted in imagery. Those sorts of theological ideas are something that Judaism and Islam share. In fact, there are many rituals and practices that are done in Islam that share a certain common theme with certain rituals and ideas in Judaism as well. So from a theological perspective or theoretical perspective, there's quite a lot of sharing and goodness over there. And the truth is that, like all good religions that are worshiping God, there's no critique in the practice of that religious faith. I think at the same time, there is a certain strain of Islamic belief that has become politicized and does seek more than just a sort of theological approach to life, and does seek to overthrow Western civilization. This is a consistent thing that we saw all the way from 9/11. I mean, we saw before, but we really since 9/11, this idea that there are groups radicalized in the Islamic world, that their goal of these radicals is to take over Western civilizations, to infiltrate a country, to tear down the country, and to instead uphold radical Islamic law. And this is something that in the West we should be vigilant over. We should understand that that has something to do with Muslims and their beliefs and the theology and a desire to connect with God in that way. There's nothing to do with anything. What it does have to do with people do not want, if you live in the West, people don't want the West to be usurped by radical Islamic ideology. It's just not what is wanted over here. And so this war of ideologies is something that needs to be dealt with, needs to be defeated. If you want to have that in your own place and stick to your own, that's your call. But don't bring it into Western countries and think that everyone is just going to be okay with that. If you like this content overall, hit that subscribe button over there with the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Take care.